Welcome to the To Be Frank Show with Zacc and Strack. Frank Zaccanelli has been in the world of domestic and international business and professional sports for 40 years. And as a former minority owner, president, and general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, he's been asked to comment on current events and national news for most of his professional career. Sarah Strackhouse has worked as a reporter, videographer, graphic designer, anchor, and producer at Fox News, the CW, CBS, NBC, and Time Warner cable stations across the country for more than 12 years. And no matter where she landed, her search was for the truth. In a time where journalistic integrity has come to be questioned, people are looking for a place to find just the facts.
Thanks for joining us for the To Be Frank Show with Zacc and Strack. I'm Sarah Strackhouse, Frank Zaccanelli.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah, happy start of the week.
Yeah, welcome to the Monday edition of the To Be Frank Show. I'll tell you this one, boy, this was not for a lack of news today. I mean, you talk about struggling to figure out what the hell you're going to cover.
Yep. Well, trying to think about what people want to hear the most, because there is so much news happening right now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, you know, President Biden's trip to Rome and then over to the summit on climate. There's just so much stuff out there that it's just, you don't really know what to cover.
There really is. And something that was trending on social media, especially Twitter, was a tweet from Elon Musk. Basically, the background story there is that David Beasley, who's the director of the UN World Food Program, called on he and Jeff Bezos to basically give $6 billion that would help solve world hunger. He said, 42 million, quote, 42 million people that are literally going to die if we don't reach them. It's not complicated. So then Elon Musk, of course, very quippy, Twitter, always on social media, sent a tweet out that said, quote, if WFP can describe on this Twitter thread exactly how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it. But it must be open source accounting so the public sees precisely how the money is spent.
I think that is one of the most commonsensical, logical. I'm a big Musk guy.
Yeah.
I like him. I don't like Bezos as much. I like Musk. The guy's apparently worth $300 billion.
Right.
So half of $6 billion or the whole $6 billion is a rounding error for the guy.
Yeah.
But his concern is what most rich people's concern is when they give money, is how's it being spent? Because these associations that exist inside the UN, that exist inside these foundations, that exist inside, of these charitable so-called endeavors.
Right.
When you really follow the money, a lot of money doesn't go directly where it's supposed to go. So bravo to Elon Musk.
I think it's great. If you can't be transparent about where the money is going, then you probably don't deserve the money.
At all.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big fan of that. And, we didn't make this a segment, but as part of what President Biden is doing, this week, he does it again where he goes to the podium and he says, I was told to call on these people. I mean, that's a quote now.
Right.
I was told.
Or I'm not supposed to do this, or I'm not supposed to do that.
Who is they?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to know, who are these people? This is the president of the United States. He can do whatever he thinks is best.
Who is pulling your strings?
Who is it? And then he's caught with a cheat sheet. He's got a cheat sheet in his hand, so he already knows the questions that are coming. That's not a press conference.
No.
I mean, get on Donald Trump all you want. Believe me, I love to get on him. But he never had questions that were fed to him. He took questions.
Right.
He stood there. Now, again, if this is your first show, we're not a political show.
No.
I don't take sides. I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not a Biden guy. I'm an American. I'm an independent, but it's just such a bad look, Sarah.
It really is. And we talk about transparency. We've talked about it time and time again on this show. There is nothing transparent about what he's doing. He doesn't answer questions. He walks away half the time. And then when he does answer questions, they're plants. That's not journalism.
It isn't. But you've got to blame the reporters now. Whoever is on that list, that already knows that the president has their question should be ashamed of themselves.
I agree.
And they should not be part of journalism. This is what's ruining journalism.
This is why people are losing trust.
Well, and I'm going to get to it in the Terry McAuliffe, Glenn Youngkin, big decision tomorrow about the Virginia governorship.
Yep.
I'm going to get into that because you can't watch it anymore, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get right into live news then here. So this first story, men claiming to be the Taliban shot 3 dead at an Afghan wedding for playing music. So it's kind of a weird who are these people story, right? So NBC reports basically this fight erupted over whether or not music was allowed to be played in one of these provinces in Afghanistan. 3 people were shot, 10 were injured. Residents say that the gunmen were the Taliban. The Taliban say that they were not in their organization. Now, where the truth lies is kind of a question mark here.
Well, so it was done, though, I'm sure, according to the State Department, professionally. And what was the other one? They were professional and they were...
courteous, or it was professional and...
Well, we'll get to it. But I'm sure it was done professionally.
Oh, yeah, of course. Very professionally.
Yeah, so that's the problem that I have with all of this. I mean, we try to legitimize the Taliban.
Yeah.
Not our show, but the United States
the Biden
government
administration
trying to businesslike was the other one.
Yes.
They're businesslike and professional. There's nothing businesslike and professional about these people.
Even one of the Taliban intelligence department members said that the attackers were from the Taliban.
Well, I have a quote here that came out of that same article. A Taliban spokesman said that it is not permissible to kill anyone playing music. Okay? Not permissible. We only try to persuade them otherwise. That was his quote.
Because music is so terrible.
Well, I mean, these are going to be people that are called professional, and they've been called, all these other things. The bottom line to it is they're not businesslike. They're not professional.
No.
They're terrorists.
Yep.
And let's give the Biden administration about this much room, not much more, on this particular Afghan subject, because they've blown it to the high heavens. But maybe when they were saying these complimentary things, they were trying to get our people out. I don't know. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. What we do know is in Afghanistan, a story that we're not going to let die. We've committed to this. The situation is we have independent, former military, former government people that are doing everything they can to try to get as many of these Americans out. And
more than 400 now.
Well, you know it, Sarah. I mean, it went from 100 to 200 to 363 to 450. So
yeah, it's unbelievable, and people are still trying to get them out, working at a network of virtual communication to try to get people out, and it's just and then we hear that the Taliban is doing stuff like this, and it's there's so many other stories that have come out, but this is just kind of one of the recent ones that just sounds so ridiculous, for playing music at a wedding ceremony. It's just sad to see, and it's the people who are over there are stuck now under this regime, and it's just unbelievable.
Well, in closing on this particular segment, for all of the people that are a little bit younger that watched the show that weren't, paying attention during 2001, 9/11, the Taliban were the people that knocked the buildings down, sent the plane into the Pentagon, the plane that got crashed in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So let's just call this what it is. These are bad people.
Terrorist group.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so our next subject, we are talking about the Virginia governor election. So election day is right around the corner. Tomorrow. And 2 of the biggest races, Virginia and New Jersey, but we're really focusing here on Virginia. Frank, can you take it away here?
Well, again, I have not hid the fact that Terry McAuliffe is a friend of mine. We went to rival high schools in upstate New York City. I like him personally. I think his first term as governor was good. He has been caught up in this critical race theory mess, and he's been dragged down by the Democratic Party, I think, as a whole, in terms of their policies that aren't very popular I know in the state of Virginia.
Right, especially the more rural counties.
Yes, and Terry has had to go, and he's had to bring Biden in, and he's had to do all these things. Neither Biden nor Trump are popular here.
Yeah,
so let's start.
I was going to say bringing Biden in might not have been the best course of action for him.
But on the other side, the Republicans can't bring Trump in either.
No.
So it just is the state of our political affairs. Here's really what I want to say, though. We all sat through and watched the 2020 election. Sarah, I know you paid a lot of attention to that. CNN and NBC did every single thing they could to get Trump not reelected. Everything.
Yep.
Okay? Fox is doing the same thing here with Terry.
Right.
You can't turn on a Fox broadcast now where they're not bashing Terry and the Democratic Party. And I ask you this question. It wasn't right during the 2020 election. It's not right now. It's not going to be right in 2022. It's not going to be right in 2024. This is where the media has gone. They become so partisan and so ideological, it makes me sick, which is one of the reasons, Sarah, you and I do the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the hardest things being a journalist. You know, I've been a journalist for 12 years almost now, and it's working in a bunch of different stations, a bunch of different states, you know, and you're kind of fed different things, you know, from depending on who owns the station, depending on if it's a Fox affiliate, a CBS affiliate, ABC, etc. And it's so frustrating now because I feel like journalism means something different than it used to.
Is it about money?
Oh, of course. It's about money. It's about ratings, about sales, who you can sell to. I mean, the sales department would tell you, you know, to act a certain way or say a certain thing. And, you know, this is how we get your ratings. You know, you two need to do this or need to speak like this.
So is it safe to say that all of the cable networks, for sure, the national networks aren't much better, but the cable networks, for sure, they've all sold out?
I mean,
not all, but most.
I was going to say probably most. I mean, I think there are still a lot of individual stations that are maybe privately owned.
How about reporters, individual reporters?
I think
there's a few, right?
I think no one goes into reporting to specifically try to say, I'm going to tell it like this. I'm going to tell it like this. I think a journalist, in theory, if you're a true journalist, you want to tell the facts and you want to make the public educated. But unfortunately, people have gotten so swept up in their personal bias, in their station bias, and in what your superiors are telling you that a lot of people stop actually reporting the truth. They only report the truth in light of whatever agenda they're trying to push.
Yeah, and you know, the reason that it hits home is when you actually know somebody that is involved here.
Yeah.
I've known Terry since high school. I mean, he's a good person. He's a great family man. He cares about people. He's not a bad human being. But if you watch Fox, you think that he's criminal number 472 on the list that they've got to go and run down.
Yep.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So the people of Virginia, I'm sure you're going to go to the polls tomorrow. There's been a lot of, you know, a kind of early voting, if you will. Everybody's trying to say this is going to be a foreshadowing to what's going to happen in 22 and 24. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head right there. You know, both in New Jersey and Virginia, I feel like a lot of times they predict the next race, and a lot of times they push back on whatever party is actually holding the White House at the time. So we'll have to see how it goes.
See.
Yeah, Thursday we'll have a lot to report on.
We'll see.
All right, so we are talking about the New York City vaccine mandate without the sick outs coming. So basically, after this weekend, that was the deadline, this weekend, all city workers had to at least have one shot of the COVID vaccine, or else they'd go on unpaid leave in New York City.
So I can go off on this one. This could be an unplugged for 2 days.
Yeah.
Billy D. de Blasio
The worst.
is the worst mayor in the history of mayors on the planet Earth, okay? He is imposing these things for no real reason. The COVID thing now is starting to settle down a little bit. That doesn't mean we're not going to have another spike. I'll give you a couple statistics. In New York City, as of last night, 22,800 municipal workers were unvaxxed, according to the reports coming out of New York City last night. 9,000 were placed on leave without pay, a spokesman for this complete idiot mayor, Billy D. de Blasio. Okay? Here's the bottom line, Sarah. This is so obvious. We've got so many problems in our country, and we just seem like we're creating more and more and more. De Blasio can't get out of his own way.
Yeah.
Okay, he can't. He ran for president, and other than a few close cousins and a few people on his block, nobody voted for this guy. Okay, you remember all that.
Yep.
This guy can't get elected dog catcher today.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, it's just ridiculous what's going on. And then you take, and I'm going to let you get to this, the national vax mandates now, and you put them on top of this, for what?
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable to me. You're exactly right. He's getting in his own way. 26 FDNY stations were closed due to the mandate. I mean, that affects your people. As the mayor, if you are understanding and you're seeing more than 20,000 people are still unvaccinated who work for the city, that many people are against the mandate, and 26 fire stations are closed, that is telling you something. And if you are now putting your people in jeopardy because those stations cannot operate if a fire goes out. I mean, FDNY are some of the busiest firefighters in probably the country. I mean, obviously, California
in the country, in the country's largest city, right?
Exactly. And
buildings
they're seeing all of these
piled on top
issues
of each other.
Exactly. And obviously, it's not just fire. They're going to, they're getting calls for everything. And if 26 of them are closed, I mean, that's unbelievable. Just last week, 2,000 New York City firefighters took medical leave. I mean, they're losing people left and right.
And those are sit-outs, right?
Oh, yeah. Those are sick-outs. Yeah, they're just deciding.
And we're going to get the sick-outs in the airlines before we're off, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a trend now that's going all over the place. Let me give you two more statistics. As of last night, 84% of the NYPD were vaccinated. That leaves 16% that aren't. That's a big number. The NYPD, I think, all categories is 40, 50,000 people.
Yep.
And then 80% of the fire department in New York City were vaxxed. That leaves 20% that's not vaxxed. We're going to just tell all these people you can't come to work anymore?
Right.
What happens when there's a problem? What happens when there's a fire?
Exactly. Well, and we saw the story on Friday. A young boy, I can't remember if he was 6 or 9, but he died in a fire that engulfed one of the apartments, and the fire department did say that it wasn't, response time didn't have to do with people being out of the stations or the stations being closed, but at the same time, eventually it will have to do with that. Eventually it is going to slow down response times, and that's so unfortunate because that means that more people are going to die, more people are going to be injured and in danger. Even the Department of Sanitation has 77% of their employees with at least one shot. I mean, that's still a big number of people without, and that might not seem like a huge deal, but if you live in New York City, trash getting piled up on the side of the road and just the amount of work that the Department of Sanitation has to do in New York City. I mean, If you ever visited, that's a huge deal. So all of these people are going to be without. I mean, it's just going to completely change the course of how the city runs.
Well, Sarah and I are East Coasters, if you couldn't tell by our accent. But, I mean, New York City is one of the 10 greatest cities in the world.
Yep.
And it's been ruined by this guy. Yeah. It's been ruined by Governor Cuomo. I mean, if you go to the city today, and you went to the city as much as you and I have through our lives, through my business career, through everything else, it's not even the same city anymore.
At all.
And all they're doing is wrecking it worse for no reason.
Yep.
This is no reason. So, this leads us into the next subject now. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, so yesterday, American Airlines canceled more than 900 flights. This after canceling that same amount the 2 days prior. So more than 1,800 flights canceled.
All right, hold on. I live here in Dallas in the hub, so do you. Weather was not an issue. Okay?
Okay.
They announced this thing, and I go right to the Weather Channel. I go outside my house. I start looking around.
Well, I'm
like, weather?
They said that a lot of them were due to. Did say some staff shortages, but they said mostly due to weather at the Dallas hub because of high winds. And I remember looking that day.
I was laying at the pool.
It was a little windy, and so the trees were going a little bit. I remember looking out, and it was like 20 or 30, mile per hour winds, which is nothing compared to what our normal windiness is.
But the sun was out. It was beautiful.
It was gorgeous. Yeah. When I saw weather, and then they specifically talked about Thursday, and I remember it was a little windier Thursday, but not enough to shut down all these flights.
All right.
It was unbelievable.
Well, 12% of the total operation. Put that in your fact book.
Yep.
And since Friday, 1,500 flights. Okay, and counting. Okay? This is not a weather problem.
No.
All right? They have to say it's a weather problem. So let me get back to you now on this one. What happens when the federally mandated December the 8th date shows up for these airlines, which are government contractors? What happens?
So American has said they are not going to follow the federal mandate. They have said that they are not going to lay people off, and they are not going to put people on unpaid leave, even if their exemption, they have to file their exemption by November 24th. Even if they are denied their exemption by December 8th, they said that they are not going to put people on unpaid leave. And Southwest has said the same thing.
Okay, so what happens?
They said, and I quote, other accommodations are going to be made.
So is the Biden administration going to send down the National Guard now to basically now not only handle the ports, which they're not going to do?
No.
Okay. I said that in
or to become nursing.
And be nurses. They're not going to do that. So they're going to fly planes now?
Well, exactly.
Guy with a cigar in his mouth with the you walk in the airplane, you look in the cockpit. I look in the cockpit all the time. I like to see gray hair. Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, that's all. Just want to see gray hair.
Okay. Well, I mean, I get that, but I think he's going to have to drop it. I think Biden's going to have to say, okay.
But why do it in the first place?
Well, that's a good question, and
so you're predicting on this show that Southwest and American are going to call his bluff.
I think they already did.
Well,
they already did.
We're not going to know till December 8th.
Yeah, I'm so curious, but I think they already did call his bluff.
All right. Well,
what are you going to do? Shut down, or the government's just going to cut those contracts?
Well, outside of the fact that
or Americans going to cut the contracts,
the economy and inflation and everything else. Now you're not going to be able to fly where you're going to want to fly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about this, and it actually reminded me that I have to make flights for Christmas to my husband. And I was like, if that happened around Christmas time, I cannot imagine the chaos. I cannot imagine what was going on. American officials said that 1,800 flight attendants will be going back to their jobs today. And they also said that 600 new hires are going to be part of the team by December. Which I find interesting.
Well, they better be vaxxed, right?
Well, I guess so.
So is that going to be a question now on the questionnaire?
Probably.
Is that constitutional?
I don't think so, because it violates HIPAA laws. I mean, do you ask when the last Tdap was? Do you ask when your last flu shot was? Do you ask when your last hepatitis B shot was? No, I have never seen any of that information.
No, for the record, okay, for this show, I am double vaxxed with Moderna, and I got my booster about 10 days ago. Mm-hmm. I'm all for this at my point in my life. Mm-hmm. But I can't make a decision for somebody else, and neither can Joe Biden.
And I don't think, honestly, it's anyone's business. Now, if the vaccine, and I don't want to get into this because I believe it's a personal choice, and I'm not trying to say that things don't work the way they're supposed to. But if the vaccine could say that you cannot transmit, or if the disease is not transmissible, the virus is not transmissible, that would be one thing, right? But the vaccine cannot claim that right now. So,
well, people that are vaxxed are getting the virus everywhere, but they're not getting really sick.
Right. So that's why I think it should be a completely personal choice. It should be up to you if you want to get it or not. It's like then it's your choice on how badly you want to
so
get the virus.
Anti-vax people, their big argument. But
I don't think you can call them an anti-vax
All right, no,
people.
but I'm saying the anti-vax group out there says you can still transmit the virus even though you're vaccinated, so what's the point?
Right.
Is that...
I think so, but again, you're calling them anti-vaxxers, and I don't think that's an accurate statement. I think it's people who don't want the COVID vaccine. Because just because someone doesn't want the COVID vaccine does not mean they don't have hepatitis, Tdap, right?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And again, I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I'm just saying that I think it needs to be a personal choice.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Speaking of the vaccine, always in the news, right? So Florida, Governor DeSantis is suing the federal government over the vaccine mandate. He's suing basically because of the federal contractors.
All right. I'm going to take this one from the top, and then you can comment to this. But the suit alleges that the federal government lacks the authority to impose this order. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something. Again, I'm not a lawyer, even though I practice law in my own life probably 2 hours a day without a license. This is really going to tell the tale. And it's not going to be decided quickly, as most of these things are not decided. Mm-hmm. It's going to end up at the Supreme Court on whether or not the federal government has the right and the ability to impose these sanctions and to oppose their authority on this order. Where do you come out on this one?
I mean, I think that's really tough because I don't understand. I don't understand a lot of these laws. The rule, apparently, it's breaking the procurement law. But again, I don't understand the ins and outs of this law, so I can't, as it pertains to the law in this instance, I don't think I can weigh in an educated way. But I do think that it's unconstitutional for the president to say everyone needs to get this vaccine.
Mandates in general,
yes, are unconstitutional.
I think are unconstitutional, and they're not as enforceable as what people think they are.
Right.
Here's an interesting thing. Governor DeSantis, when he filed this claim, points out that several months ago, Joe Biden said it wouldn't be appropriate or lawful for the government to mandate shots. He said that 2 or 3 months ago. I remember that.
Yep.
I remember that. And DeSantis is basically putting a stake in the ground surrounding that now all of a sudden he's changed his mind.
Right. Well, he's quoting himself. He's quoting Biden back to himself, which is, again, something we have talked about time and time again on this show. Biden is his own worst enemy.
Well, and again, I don't blame Joe Biden, solely in any of this. I blame his administration. I blame his advisors. These people inside the Biden administration, from my vantage point, this is now an opinion I'm giving, look to me as people that only want to be president for 4 years. They don't really care what happens after this. Joe Biden, yesterday or the day before in Rome, was asked the question about, what about your poll numbers? And you know what he said? I don't care about those. I was elected to do the things that I'm doing. Okay? I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I think that Joe Biden, at 78 going on 79 years old, knows he's not going to run again. What I buy in this whole thing is they are acting like nothing matters. And I'm going to get into my Unplugged, and I'm going to give you something that really, really matters to follow up from my Unplugged on Thursday. But Sarah, it just appears to me that they don't really care about these poll numbers. They don't really care about some of these controversial things they're doing because they're piling things up one after another. If you were logical and you thought about this, you would never do some of these things.
Right. Because it wouldn't make you electable again.
So, what does Kamala Harris think? I think she thinks that she's got a political future. She's certainly young enough. This isn't helping her.
No.
It's not helping anybody.
Well, her name hasn't been on any of this.
Well, and part of that is she running from all this? I mean, I've asked the question before. They appointed her captain of the Titanic down at the border. She never even showed up down there. Showed up one time over in El Paso somewhere where Joe Biden said he drove by one day.
Right. Constantly absent in 2009 or 2008.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Time now for Double Take. Again, if you're just joining us for the show for the first time, Double Take, we have 5 subjects and we kind of go back and forth. We have a 2-minute timer and a buzzer.
Which you never pay attention to.
I mean, I hear it, but then everyone's got to finish.
I don't pay attention to it either.
No, we don't pay attention, but we'll try. So the first story, Al Gore says, time to say goodbye to coal, oil, and gas worldwide.
Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions on this one. Go ahead, I'll let you start.
No, that's just grandstanding by a guy that's out of it. Okay.
Idiocy.
Was he a good vice president? I'll tell you what, Bill Clinton was a good president, so that made him a pretty good vice president. But the bottom line is, this is just grandstanding. You're not going to get away from all this stuff. And if you look at this $3.5 trillion bill that's now $1.75 trillion, they've got almost $600 billion worth of stuff that is trying to get rid of fossil fuels, and you're not going to do it. I'll give you a statistic. I'll give you one statistic. For the record, oil, gas, and coal are 79% of the U.S. energy consumption. Gore wants to get rid of this stuff. I don't know, Sarah, how you do
Well,
it.
it's just not possible. I mean, petroleum alone is 35%, and it basically people would be out millions of jobs. Renewable energy only accounts for 12% of what we do, and it's not reliable. That is the biggest issue. You can't harness solar power. They haven't found out a secure way to do this. And on top of that, wind turbines have so many issues. First off, the idea of wind. Wind isn't always going to be going. They can freeze. They basically can never be a total replacement, which means there's always going to have to be a backup,
Right.
whether it's coal, natural gas, petroleum. And if you go out too quickly, if you start cutting all of this too quickly, things are going to melt down.
Well, no, what's going to happen? The prices are going to
Yep.
go through the roof, which we're seeing.
Yep.
I mean, Joe Biden basically said that he was not going to be an anti-gas and anti-oil and
Right.
anti-anything during the debates. Well, that's totally not true.
Yeah.
He cuts the pipeline, no more drilling on federal lands. And here we sit now. He goes and he's now blaming this on the Middle Easterns.
He's placing it on OPEC. And we were completely energy independent before. We didn't care about OPEC. And now we do.
But here's in closing, you know, these energy policies, would I like to see more electric cars? Sure. Look at what Tesla's been able to do, right? That guy is a genius, right? Would I like to see more? But you can't just turn a switch and all of a sudden say, well, we're in power now and that's it.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, they can be a fuel saver. They can help. They can help save emissions, but they cannot be the sole position.
Correct.
And you cannot.
They're additives to our
exactly.
existing system. And this whole concept about the biggest existential threat, man, he loves to say that. He's got that word down, is climate. I'm telling you, it's not in the top three.
Well, here's the
It's not in the
inconvenient
top
truth,
three.
Al Gore. You can't do it. You can't cut that. So it's not going to work. Our next subject, Celtics player says China should not host Olympics. Enos Kanter.
All right, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a bold statement to make. The sneakers that he wore recently had no Beijing 2022, move the games, no rights, no games. And he's been a big proponent of all of the slave labor going on in China, all of the issues going on in China. And why do we, especially Nike, he's come at Nike a bunch of times, why do we care so much about what's going on in America when we're still outsourcing all of our stuff from a country that does the exact same thing? So I understand why he's kind of wanting to call attention to that when it comes to Nike. But I think to completely say a country can't host an Olympics, I think that's kind of just calling a shot in the dark.
All right. So I've been quoted nationally on this when Daryl Morey, who was at the time the general manager for the Houston Rockets, he's now with the Philadelphia 76ers. And there was that discussion about giving the people in Hong Kong saying your freedom's important and everything else. Well, the Chinese Communist Party had a meltdown. They took the NBA games off the networks in China for like a month or 2 months. China is, the people in China, I've been there 3 times and I spent over a month and a half there, okay? The people are good people. The government is absolutely communist. They don't care about their people. They don't care about world affairs. You want to sit around, you want to talk about all these climate issues. As long as India, Russia, and China are doing what they're doing, you're not going to solve anything.
No, not
This
at all.
is all grandstanding. You're not going to solve anything. If you can get them on board, maybe we can make some progress.
Saudi Arabia.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
This whole Enos Kanter thing, in my opinion, comes down to 4 subjects. Nike and their involvement with China labor, or lack thereof. Hong Kong, remember the one government, 2 systems, okay? Remember that? That was supposed to last for 50 years when they deeded Hong Kong back to the Chinese, the Brits did. They completely disregarded that agreement. Number 3, the NBA, you know, they take the games off the TV, and you got to ask yourself, is the NBA now, are they that desperate that they feel like they're hamstrung by China? And then you've got the whole LeBron James thing, which was called out by Enos Kanter. You know, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. I thought that's what we're dealing with here.
Right.
If you're going to have any credibility, NBA, if you're going to have any credibility, LeBron and the rest of the players that want this kind of credibility, which they're right to ask for it, you can't close your eyes to what's going on in China. And the last thing I would say is, all indications are now, Sarah, that virus started in the Wuhan lab and that the Chinese government swept it under the rug. Mm-hmm. They could have saved millions of lives if they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big Chinese fan right now.
Yeah.
I'm not a big China fan. The people are great.
Yeah.
The government, forget
Absolutely
it.
not. All right, our next subject, Abby Huntsman says the View is an unbearable culture that rewards bad behavior.
All right, so is the rumor true that you're interviewing with the View? You're going to leave this show and you're interviewing with the View?
Oh yeah, that's the next logical step. I want to leave a respected and educated news show to go on a gossip rag. That's what I want. And I'm calling it a gossip rag on purpose.
So why is the View so popular?
It's popular because
it's the most popular.
Because it brings people drama. So it brings people drama and gossip, and the girls can just get. And I hate to be so, I guess I don't want to be sexist about it, but these women who are on the show kind of get together and just run their mouths about gossip, a lot of time without facts.
Very left-leaning, correct?
Very left-leaning. So there's not even any in the middle aspects of this. So the entire thing is just talking and slamming people who are conservative and groups who are conservative. And the whole thing is just mean and nasty, and they thrive off of that. And a lot of times they think it's funny, and they do it for humor.
Do you blame the producers?
I mean, no, they're trying to make money. I mean, everyone's trying to make money in that aspect. The producers, the executive producers, the people who run the show, the GM, the station, I'm sure everyone on the show, they thrive off of it, and that they know that they're making money. People want to watch other people slam other people because it's drama TV.
Well, every conservative voice that has come off of there has had horrible things to say.
Mm-hmm. It's a toxic work environment.
I like Whoopi Goldberg because I thought she was great in Sister Act. I thought she was great in the Color Purple. She's a good actor. I liked her. If you watch her on the show, you're looking at a different person.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to be honest, this Joy Behar, she's brutal. I mean, it's just brutal. And if there was somebody on the right that was that brutal, they're brutal.
Yep.
I'm not picking sides here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Abby Huntsman, at first when she left, she tried not to say a ton about the show. She only said that it was toxic. They tried to get her to retract that statement, but she's like, I'm not lying about it. That's what she said. And then she finally kind of opened up more about it. And she said that people are used on the show like pawns. It's all about money and ratings. And that's why shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, like they're drama. People are drawn to drama. They want to watch it because it makes them feel better about their own lives. And don't get me wrong, I love watching The Bachelor, Bachelorette. It's entertaining. And but I think that shows like that.
I would rather watch paint dry than that. But that's okay.
Everyone's got their thing, right?
I'd rather watch paint dry.
But I gotta say, The View is not news, in my opinion. It's not news. It's a gossip rag, and it is what it is.
Well, they do pretty good. Yeah. All right. I thought we had to throw something in here today. I convinced Sarah of this ridiculous story that we're going to cover here.
Oh, my God.
But we need a little levity in our lives. Mm-hmm. A New York woman is suing the Kellogg's Corporation for $5 million because there are not enough strawberries in the strawberry Pop-Tarts.
I have to read this quote from the suit. It says, quote, "The amount of strawberry ingredients is insufficient not merely to provide the nutrient benefits of strawberries, but to provide a strawberry taste." I mean, oh my goodness.
I
just thought this was ridiculous.
You got to have a little levity. Elizabeth Russet is the name of this woman. Now, I did not look her up, okay? And she files this class action lawsuit. Her lawyer, Spencer Sheehan, I did look up. Here's a guy that is an ambulance chaser, no question about it, but he's educated through the roof. Georgetown undergrad, Fordham Law. What the hell are you doing, Spencer? I mean, this has got to be for publicity.
It has to be. I mean, I think the same thing about the person who got the coffee that was too hot from, what was it, McDonald's, right? I mean, that suit, I feel like it's similar. I understand that she burnt herself, but this, just unbelievable.
How are you gonna prove this? Are you gonna go in front of a court and a jury and you're gonna, I mean, how are you gonna?
I mean, on the Pop-Tarts box, in Pop-Tarts' defense, and again, I'm no legal expert, but they say that the pastries have less than 2% of pears, apples, and strawberries.
So it says it.
So it does say it on the box.
Well,
and
Kellogg, they're not dumb people.
Well, no. I mean, they're obviously going to cover themselves. And if you're buying Pop-Tarts, I think you probably know that you're not getting the freshest of fruit.
I mean, you throw it in the toaster and you're on the run with your coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't like a gourmet breakfast.
I was going to say, if you want real strawberries, go out to your produce section and get some strawberries.
All right.
Next story, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, what is their future? And I gotta say, I am so frustrated with the amount of media attention this couple has gotten.
Well, I think that's self-imposed if you really look at it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing on Harry, right? I'm going to give him a pass on a few things.
Okay.
So he grows up in this bubble.
Mm-hmm.
His mother then dies in this horrific car crash.
Mm-hmm.
She's completely doesn't have a life anymore. The royal family kind of pushes her aside when, in fact, her husband is the reason that the marriage didn't work.
Right.
Okay?
Because of
she didn't have anything
yeah.
to do with this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
She gets pushed aside. She then dies. The queen then decides, and I like the queen, that they may not even have a memorial service for her that's sanctioned by the government. I mean, you saw what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This became the biggest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
For
there
a
was
long
a Beanie
time.
Baby named after her, for goodness
And you
sake.
take a look at this, and you got to give Harry a bit of a pass because he looks like a guy who hated that life, who saw it kill his mom. And so therefore, he meets Meghan Markle, and he now has a reason why he can get the hell out of there.
Right.
And he's talking about all these things that my father doesn't like it, my brother doesn't like it. He's ratting everybody out, which the Brits are going crazy on. But for me, I think that Harry has found freedom and relief. That's my read.
And it's so interesting because I've heard so many sides to the story. I've heard that story. I've heard the story, oh, Meghan wears the pants and has a grip on him and doesn't let him be with his family. They've closed off to everyone. I've heard what you've said, that she's finally freed him from this terrible life. I just think if they want to get out of the spotlight, they need to do it on purpose because they're purposely being in the spotlight. I mean, the birthday party, the trip to New York, the bench book, there's all these reasons why they put themselves
The press
in
is
the
not going to let them be out of the spotlight, though. I mean, this is Diana's son.
Yeah.
His brother is going to be King of England.
Right.
They're not going to let him out of the spotlight. But I don't see it the way that a lot of conservatives see it, that Meghan Markle is this homewrecker, that she's this person that, you have to take her up on the fact that she had some really emotional issues when she was living in that bubble over there.
Yeah.
I could last about 5 minutes.
Oh, she said that she suffered with a mental illness and thoughts of suicide and had actually talked to someone in the palace. And then they had said they basically had swept it under the rug, didn't let her see anyone about it. So, I mean, I imagine that it's a pretty interesting and toxic
I think the
environment.
monarchy is going to change when the Queen passes away. And I hope that's not for a long time. I like the Queen.
Yeah.
But I think things are going to change.
Well, hopefully she stops having her martinis, right? Her gin martinis.
No. Drink more. Drink more.
All right, time for now. Frank's Unplugged.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the To Be Frank show, I have a proclamation to make. The United States of America is broke. We are broke. We don't have any money. Any monies that you see going through the system, we're borrowing, okay? As I mentioned in my last Unplugged, this is the equivalent of you and your household having a brother-in-law over at Bank of America that continues to loan you money, even though he shouldn't, knowing that you'll never pay it back. And that's how your family is surviving. Well, that's how the United States of America is surviving. We're broke. We don't have any money. And you see now this discussion on television between these news people that don't have a clue what they're reporting on. That, this has gone now from 3.5 trillion, trillion, to now 1.75 trillion. Oh, that sounds more reasonable. It's not more reasonable. It's a complete joke. We don't have the money. We owe $29 trillion and counting that we can't pay back. We can never pay it back. And the ramifications of this are going to be brutal. And they're probably going to happen sooner than you think. In 1992, as many of you know who know me, I work for the Perot family. And Ross Perot ran for president as an independent against Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush. This is 1992. Here's the bottom line. Ross Perot was one of the 5 greatest business people of the 20th century going into the 21st century in the United States. There's not even an argument. This guy was brilliant. He loved his country, and he ran for president for all the right reasons. He said this. This was at a time in 1992. Now, I want you to focus on this because it's really important. 2021, 29 trillion. 2092, 4 trillion. When it was 4 trillion, this was Ross Perot's quote. The debt in this country is like a crazy ant we keep down in the basement. All the neighbors know she's there, but nobody wants to talk about her. I mean, is that not really like a way to, in Ross Perot-ism, to really describe what the hell we're dealing with now, which is a, 7-time bigger problem now than it was back in 1992. This is not sustainable, ladies and gentlemen. We're broke. And this is all going to come home to roost at some level here now, and we're going to go borrow all this new money. And you got to remember something. For those of you that didn't watch last show or the show before, we don't have additional monies. We run over $1 trillion in deficits in our day-to-day, hour-to-hour, month-to-month, yearly budgets. We run $1 trillion deficit. That, again, is like you sitting at home and you make $10,000 a month and you're spending $20,000 a month. You can't sustain it. The government, unfortunately, just can go borrow more money, just print more money. And that's what some of these loony people that are all for this are saying. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But Ross Perot really summed it up. This is the crazy ant in the basement. Well, here's the problem. She's starting to make some noise now. And everybody's patting, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, who are the 2 Democratic senators that held up the $3.5 trillion issue, okay? One's from Arizona, one's from West Virginia. They're patting these people on the back. Like, this is great. You've done such a great job. We can't afford to spend any more money because we've already spent it all. We're out of money. And my prediction is, and anybody who wants to argue with me can come on this show, and I'll have you running off this show in 5 minutes or less. We'll never pay this debt off. We can't even balance a budget, let alone pay the debt off. And bad things are going to happen down the road here. There's no other way to look at it. Joe Biden is well, this is what I was elected to do. By who? Yeah, you are the duly elected president. You won the election. This is not a show that contests the 2020 election. He won the election. But these were votes against Donald Trump, not for this policy. Because anybody who thinks about it for 15 minutes or less can really understand that this is not the road that we need to be going down. Here's a really bad stat I'm going to give you. In 2020, 61% of Americans didn't pay 1 nickel in tax. Okay? The taxes are so heavily weighted on the wealthy, and they should pay their fair share, and corporations should pay their fair share. But 61% of Americans didn't even pay any taxes in 2020. And the discussion was and is that Ross Perot said, we're on the edge of the cliff. This is in 1992. We're on the edge of the cliff. Well, where the hell are we now? If we were on the edge of the cliff at $4 trillion with no balanced budget, where are we now? AOC, what I can't stand about this, I have no problem with her as a human being. She has every right to run for Congress. She wins in her district. I have no problem with her at all in that regard. But the media, including Fox News, is enamored with her. She's on all the time. She knows nothing about any of this. She basically tells Joe Biden, forget about Manchin. Let's get this $1.9 trillion or 1.75 or whatever the hell the number is now. Let's get this passed, and then you could just by the stroke of a pen cancel all the student loan debt. Who's going to pay for this? Just by the stroke of a pen. I mean, this is the thought process of these liberal people that don't know the first thing about running a country, about running the biggest business on the planet Earth, the United States government. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, has projected the debt is forecast to exceed the size. Now, I want everyone to listen to this. The size of the U.S. economy next year in 2022 for the first time since 1946. Let me repeat. The Congressional Budget Office, not the Frank and Sarah show, okay, projects that by next year, the debt is going to be greater than the entire U.S. economy. If interest rates ever rose, and I talked about this on the last show, by even a percentage point or 2 percentage points, the explosion that you hear out your back door is going to be the U.S. economy blowing up because we can't sustain it. They are artificially keeping these interest rates so low, and this has been going on for a long time. But if we ever get into a market-driven interest rate scenario, the explosion that you hear is the U.S. economy completely blowing up. Now remember, the argument between the debt and the GDP. Remember the ratios, okay? A unsustainable, according to the World Bank, ratio between the debt of our country, 29 trillion, and our gross domestic product is 75 to 78%. On the last show, on the second to last show, I talked about that relationship now. It's 125%. It's not sustainable. There should be buzzers. There should be fireworks going off everywhere in Washington to say this is not sustainable. Again, it is now, I am predicting, my opinion, you can't pay the debt back. So sooner or later, a really bad thing has to occur. You either default on the debt, you write the debt down, you stiff everybody. I mean, there's no good options when it comes to any of this. Okay. There's a group that's out there. I'm going to close with this, called the MMT Group, the Modern Monetary Theory Group. These are a bunch of beauties, let me tell you. These people have made up in their own minds, and they convince people like AOC that what they're saying is reality. This is so far from reality. Their basic theory is no matter how large the federal debt gets and grows, the federal government can always just continue to print money, and it doesn't really matter what it is because you're already printing your own money. The joke of it is, and these are crazy people that believe this, they concede, they have to concede when pressed, that at some point this will bring incredible dangers to the U.S. economy and the American people. AOC and others on the left are advocates of this. And Sarah, you know, when I go through this, it's really, really, really hard to, you know, really think about this from a standpoint that I am a byproduct of the American dream. Mm-hmm. My grandparents and parents came. You know, I started out with not a whole lot. I was very lucky, and I was blessed that things worked out for me and my family. But all this stuff is ruining our country. Mm-hmm. And this is the crazy ant in the basement. The problem is she's starting to make noise now. And what's going to end up happening is this can't be paid back. It's not going to stop. But yet Joe Biden feels, and the Democrats feel, and the liberals feel that this is their mandate. This is not a mandate. These are just people that want handouts.
Right.
But our country is not built on that. He stands up, the president, and he says, I'm a capitalist. Well, if you're a capitalist, President Biden, you can't continue to print money. You can't continue to do something that's already unsustainable.
Right.
We can't pay it back. We'll never pay it back.
So my question is, what happens if we do default? Like you were saying, some of the issues that are going to happen. I mean, what does that mean for our country?
It's a meltdown. I mean, the currencies go, they get murdered. The dollar gets murdered. Inflation goes crazy. I mean, interest rates go up. I mean, everything. Right. If you're loaning the country money, would you loan it at almost no interest rate, given what I've just told you? Your debt is about as secured as loaning it to some guy off the street that doesn't have a driver's license and you're giving him a car.
Right, you're not getting that back.
You're not getting your money.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. And, you know, President Biden, it looks like I'm really getting on him today, and I am. I'm not a political guy. I'm an independent. If you watch a bunch of shows, you'll realize that. If you watch one show, you think, I'm just riding the guy. He says that the biggest threat that we face is climate change. It's not. This is by far the biggest threat we face for our children, for our grandchildren, for the sovereignty of our country. This is a really bad one, Sarah.
Yeah.
So
I don't think, I mean, you're saying that it seems like you're getting on to Biden. I mean, you're a numbers guy. You're a businessman your whole life. I mean, this is what you do. You understand
I don't want to pick on the guy, but I mean, you know.
But you're explaining it for the American people in a concept
But here's
that's hard.
But here's the point, though. This is the biggest point, I think. It's not all his fault.
Right.
This is the fault of every president from Nixon on.
Right.
You know, Trump was a terrible violator of this. Oh, we're borrowing money so cheap. Well, Donald, this isn't like you own a hotel.
Right.
Okay? And that hotel is throwing off positive cash flow.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
You loan me money, I build and own a hotel, I'm going to be able to pay you back because I'm in positive cash flow.
Right.
The country is in negative cash flow.
Yep.
Because we spend $1 trillion more than we take in. So every year we're negative.
Yeah.
We don't have any money. So the argument about low interest rates, that's a terrible one. So the Donald is responsible. George W. is responsible. Obama's responsible. They're all responsible. I'm not just putting this on Joe Biden's lap.
But this is going to make it worse.
No, but at some point he thinks that he's mandated to do this. What are we mandating? What are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing? The country is financially wrecked. But nobody, but here's the problem. Anybody who's been in Congress for the last 30 years is responsible. When was the last time, I asked you this last time, that somebody took a microphone and put it in somebody's face and said, how are you going to pay for this?
Yeah. No one.
This is at no cost.
This is all paid for.
No. All right. It's all paid for. And let's assume it is. How are you going to pay $29 trillion? How are you paying this $1 trillion that the country is running up every year in deficits?
Right.
See, you're only scratching the surface when you say, but they've been telling us for as long as I paid attention, well, all this is all paid for. But the debt goes up incrementally every year.
Right.
So obviously it's not paid for.
Right. Clearly it's not. They're missing something there.
Yeah, this really upsets me, as you can see. So, you know, the bottom line is I love the United States of America. It's been great to my family, but we're really making a big mistake here. And, you know, the networks and the cable networks, Sarah, they can't even cover this.
No, they can't break it down. I mean, like
they can't even cover it. They can't even cover it. They don't want to cover it.
Right.
So, all right.
All right. Well, time now for headlines. All right. Well, the Biden administration is considering giving $450,000 per person to immigrants who were separated at the border during the Trump administration. That could equal up to $1 billion in total, according to The Hill. This comes as part of a proposed settlement package for a number of lawsuits against the federal government. The American Civil Liberties Union is handling a number of these lawsuits over the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy. According to the Interagency Task Force on the Reunification of Families, 2,221 children have been reunited with their families, but 1,727 still have not been. And President Biden ended his time at the Group of 20 summit yesterday. The Associated Press reports his overall take is that He has $900 billion planned for renewable energy, which Congress will vote on this week. He spoke about supply chain efforts and how he plans to fight inflation and build back the economy. But at this point, he has yet to get Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia to the table to limit carbon emissions and move to renewable energy, or claim that they will. And the state of Florida is suing the Biden administration over the vaccine mandate for federal contractors. According to NPR, DeSantis announced the lawsuit last week, saying the president doesn't have the authority to issue the rule, which violates procurement law. He vowed that he would take state lawmakers to the Capitol next month to combat the vaccine mandates for private businesses as well. This while Florida COVID cases continue to decrease, and in October, Florida was one of the lowest states in new cases per capita. An American canceled hundreds of flights over the weekend due to primarily staffing shortages, according to the AP. Yesterday, they canceled more than 900 flights, this after canceling the same amount 2 days prior. 100 flights were already canceled yesterday for Monday. In addition, high winds in Dallas also caused some of the cancellations as well, starting Thursday, according to American officials. The AP reports 2/3 of the flights canceled Sunday were because of flight attendants, and they weren't in the right places, and a large shortage of pilots. American officials say 1,800 flight attendants will be going back to their jobs today, and 600 new hires will be part of the team by December. And Election Day is right around the corner. In fact, it's tomorrow. And Virginia and New Jersey are two of the biggest races. Here's why. NPR reports that they're ranked 11th and 12th in population nationally, which is only about 5% of the nation. But they have a large correlation to the president's popularity 2 years after the presidential election. Additionally, in years past, both states have provided a, quote, pushback on the party holding the White House. In Virginia, there are no consecutive terms, but former Governor Terry McAuliffe is making a bid for second term, hoping to defy the pendulum swing. If current New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy wins, then he'd be the first Democratic governor reelected in more than 40 years. And side note, today the Supreme Court hears oral arguments on Texas abortion law. Lots to follow up with for Thursday.
Okay, so that's the show really for this Monday edition. You know, Sarah's going to tell you where you can get the show, but you can get it on Facebook, you can get it on YouTube, you can get it on Twitter. And Sarah, give them the other venues where they can get to the show.
So on Facebook, it's at To Be Frank Show. And then on YouTube, just search The To Be Frank Show. And then, of course, tobefrankshow.com is where you can find out all of that other information. And we are on all of your streaming platforms. So Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, anywhere that you get your podcasts, we are there as well. To Be Frank Show.
Yeah. So, that's the Monday edition, Sarah. You know, there's a lot of news out there. I think that, you know, it's really a little bit disheartening when I have to do an Unplugged the way that I had to do it today. Because when you really start to think about it, it's really bad.
Yeah.
But it is the crazy ant in the cellar. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
And they just want to continue to spend money, and they want to continue to stay in office. You know, shame on everybody.
Yep.
And again, this is not just Joe Biden. This is everybody. He just happens to be the guy now sitting in the White House ready to spend more money.
Yep.
And that's not right. But what about all these people in Congress, Sarah? What have they been doing for all this time?
The career politicians.
What about all these people? How have you let our national debt get to $29 trillion?
It's sad.
They're part of this MMT crazy group. These people are nuts.
Yeah.
Okay? So anyways, that's the show for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back on Thursday. Remember, the show's Monday and Thursday.
4 p.m.
Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, 4 p.m.
Central Time.
Yeah. And we'll see you on Thursday. So, Sarah.
All right.
It's great doing the show with you.
Great doing the show with you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.